When my niece, the girl I raised as my own daughter, put a price on the kidney that would save my life, I did not argue. I did not appeal to the love I thought we shared. I simply looked at the monstrous contract she had placed before me, uncapped my pen, and signed away my entire life's work. She thought she was securing her inheritance. She had no idea she was inheriting a beautiful, intricate, and utterly worthless lie, a trap that would honor the letter of our cruel bargain while completely destroying its spirit. She was about to learn that a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous opponent of all. Before we get to the heart of this transaction, please subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments, what is the one thing in this world that should never have a price tag? My name is Walter Hughes, and at 70 years old, my life runs on a very strict schedule. Here in the hard-working city of Cleveland, Ohio, my days are governed by the hiss and whir of a dialysis machine. For 40 years, I was a railroad engineer, a man whose life was a study in timetables, in the steady, reliable power of a locomotive pulling its weight. I believed in things that were solid, things that were dependable. Now, my own body is the one thing that is not. My kidneys failed 2 years ago, a quiet, slow betrayal from within. My life has become a series of 3 times a week, 4-hour sessions in a cold, sterile clinic, tethered to a machine that filters the life I have left. After my wife, Eleanor, passed, my only family became my niece, Rebecca. My sister, her mother, died when she was just a child, and Eleanor and I raised her as our own. We gave her everything: a father's guidance, a mother's love, a home filled with a quiet, steady warmth. She was the light of our life, a bright, ambitious young woman who, I believed, possessed a core of goodness we had instilled in her. When my kidneys failed, she was my fiercest advocate. She was the one who researched transplant options, the one who held my hand during the long, draining dialysis sessions. And she was the first one to get tested as a potential donor. The news, when it came, felt like a miracle, a reprieve from a death sentence. She was a perfect match, a 1 in a million perfect biological match. I wept when she told me, tears of a profound, life-altering gratitude. I saw in her the ultimate act of love, a daughter willing to give a piece of herself to save her father. The woman I saw in the following weeks, however, was not that loving daughter. A subtle, cold calculation began to creep into her eyes. Her conversations shifted from my health to her future. She began to speak of the risks of the surgery, of the lifelong consequences for her own health. It was all a prelude, a carefully constructed foundation for the monstrous proposal she was about to make. She came to my house last Tuesday. She did not bring the usual container of soup. She brought a lawyer. They sat me down at my own dining room table, and they presented me with a document. It was not a medical consent form. It was a contract. The terms were simple, brutal, and clear. She, Rebecca, would agree to donate her kidney to me, her loving uncle, her surrogate father. In exchange, I would agree to sign over to her, effective immediately, my entire estate. My house, my savings, my pension, and most importantly to her, my collection of antique railroad pocket watches, a priceless, museum-quality collection passed down through 4 generations of Hughes men who had worked on the rails. She was putting a price on my life, and that price was everything I had in the world. Her lawyer, a man with a cold, reptilian smile, explained that it was a sensible precaution. "Rebecca is undertaking a significant risk, Walter," he said, his voice a smooth, reasonable poison. "This simply ensures that her future, and the future of your family's legacy, is secure, no matter the outcome of the surgery." My niece just sat there, her face a mask of loving, sorrowful necessity. "I have to think of my future, Uncle Walter," she whispered, her voice a perfect performance of reluctant pragmatism. "This is the only way I can be sure." I looked at the girl I had taught to read, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged, and I saw a stranger, a cold, transactional predator whose heart was as barren as my own failing kidneys. My first instinct was to tear the contract in half, to throw them out of my house, to choose to die rather than submit to this monstrous emotional blackmail. But then, as I looked at her hard, greedy eyes, another thought, a cold, quiet, and deeply patient thought, began to form. I would sign the contract. I would give her everything she wanted. She thought she was a brilliant negotiator who had just closed the deal of a lifetime. She had no idea she was a fool who had just bought a beautiful, intricate, and utterly worthless fake. The game was not over. The final timetable was now mine to write. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen her lawyer offered me. My hand did not shake. I looked at Rebecca, at the eager, predatory glint in her eyes, and I signed my name on the line. The quiet scratch of the nib, the only sound in the room. In that single silent moment, I signed away my home, my savings, my history. And in that same moment, a cold, hard, and liberating clarity settled over me. I was a man with nothing left to lose, which meant I had, for the first time in a long time, everything to gain. The turning point was not an emotional one. It was a tactical one. As they packed up their monstrous contract, their faces alight with a triumphant, greedy relief, I began to lay the groundwork for my own, more subtle transaction. I knew my niece. Her greed was not just for money, it was for status. She did not just want to own my collection of antique railroad watches. She wanted to be seen as the worthy custodian of a great legacy. She had often spoken of donating the collection to a museum, not as an act of generosity, but as an act of self-aggrandizement. A way to have her name Rebecca Thorne etched in brass on a plaque for all time. This vanity, I knew, was her greatest weakness. While she was busy meeting with her lawyer and a team of financial advisors to facilitate the transfer of my assets, I was engaged in a quiet, meticulous project of my own. My workshop, a small, dusty room in my basement, where I cleaned and repaired my watches, became my armory. The heart of my collection, the piece Rebecca coveted most, was the Midnight Scott, a one-of-a-kind, platinum-cased pocket watch commissioned by a railroad, barren in the 1890s. Its face was a marvel of intricate enamel work, and its movement was a symphony of tiny, hand-finished gears. It was not just a watch, it was a work of art, and its appraised value was more than my house. My plan was simple. I would not damage the watch. I would not try to hide it. I would do something far more insidious. I would create a perfect, museum-quality replica, and I would swap it for the original. My life as a railroad engineer had made me a man of details, of precision, of understanding how intricate machines work. Over the next few weeks, I became a ghost in my own home. I would spend my days in the draining, life-sapping haze of the dialysis clinic, but my nights were filled with a secret, energizing purpose. I sourced the materials with a quiet, patient cunning. I found a Swiss company that specialized in creating replica watch movements. I acquired a block of solid platinum from a discreet dealer, and the first found an old, retired master engraver, a man whose own work was legendary, and I commissioned him to create a perfect copy of the watch's intricate case. I did not tell him it was a replica. I told him I was creating a display version to protect the original. My own work was the most delicate. The watch's face, with its unique hand-painted numerals and enamel dial, was the one component that could not be easily replicated. So I decided to perform a transplant. With the steady, practiced hands of a surgeon, I spent an entire, nerve-wracking night carefully disassembling the original Midnight Scott. I removed its priceless, original face and its complex, handcrafted movement. I then took the replica case and the replica movement, and I carefully, painstakingly installed the original face onto the fake. The result was a masterpiece of deception. To a casual observer, to a greedy, ignorant amateur like my niece, it was the Midnight Scott. It had the right weight, the right feel, the right face. But to a true expert, to a museum curator, to a high-end auction house appraiser, it was a clever, but ultimately worthless, fake. The heart of the watch, the intricate, hand-finished movement was gone, replaced by a soulless, factory-made replica. The final touch was an act of pure, poetic justice. I took the real, priceless movement of the Midnight Scot, the tiny, ticking heart of my family's legacy, and I sealed it inside a small, unassuming block of clear acrylic. It was now a paperweight, a beautiful, intricate, and utterly anonymous object that would sit on my desk in plain sight. Its true identity and value a secret that only I knew. The day of the swap came. Rebecca was having the entire watch collection professionally appraised and packed for transport to a secure bank vault. While the appraisers were busy in the other room, documenting the lesser pieces, I made the switch. I placed my beautiful, hollow Trojan Horse into the velvet-lined display box of the Midnight Scot, and I placed the real watch, now stripped of its face, into a simple, unmarked box destined for my own private safe. My betrayal of her trust was a perfect mirror image of her own. She had offered me a hollow organ, a kidney given not out of love, but as part of a cold, hard transaction. I was now giving her hollow treasure, a beautiful, empty shell that looked like a legacy, but was, in fact, nothing more than a cheap, ticking imitation. What is the true value of an object? Its market price, its history, or the secret it holds? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and hit the like button if you think the scales of justice are about to be balanced. With the fake Midnight Scot now nestled amongst the genuine articles, my trap was set, a silent, ticking time bomb of my own creation. The full, chilling scope of Rebecca's betrayal was a constant, bitter presence in my life. Every dialysis session, every moment of weakness and exhaustion, was now overlaid with the knowledge that the person I had loved as a daughter had looked at my suffering and had seen a business opportunity. She had not just put a price on a kidney, she had put a price on my love, and in her cold, transactional world, she believed she had made a brilliant deal. The immediate consequence was a profound and heartbreaking emotional severance. I looked at her face, which I had once seen as a beautiful blend of my sister and my wife, and I saw only a stranger. The love I had felt for her, the deep, paternal bond, was gone, replaced by the cold, dispassionate watchfulness of an opponent in a high-stakes game. Our conversations became a sterile exchange of information, updates on the transplant schedule, logistical questions about the transfer of my assets. She saw my quiet, detached demeanor as a symptom of my illness, a weary resignation. She had no idea it was the calm, focused detachment of a man who had already written her out of the story of his heart. My plan now required a stage, a grand and public arena where her supposed act of selfless love and her acquisition of our family's legacy would be celebrated. And Rebecca, in her boundless arrogance, provided one for me. She decided to host a family legacy gala, a lavish black-tie charity event. The stated purpose of the gala was to raise money for a kidney disease foundation, a beautiful, noble lie that would paint her as a selfless philanthropist. The true purpose, I knew, was to be her own coronation. It was to be the night she would be publicly lauded for her heroic donation to her uncle, and the night she would formally announce her first act as the new custodian of the Hughes family legacy, the donation of the now famous Midnight Scot pocket watch to the city's most prestigious historical museum. She was not just stealing my legacy, she was planning to wear it like a crown in front of the entire city. She asked me, of course, to be the guest of honor. "Uncle Walter," she said, her voice a purr of loving, manipulative sincerity. "It will be a celebration of life, of family, and you will be at the center of it. It's the least I can do." "I would be honored, my dear," I replied, my own voice a perfect performance of grateful, teary-eyed humility. I knew my presence was essential to her performance. I was the prop that would make her story believable, the frail dying uncle saved by the heroic, selfless niece. While she was busy with caterers and guest lists, I was engaged in my own quiet preparations. I took the real priceless movement of the Midnight Scot, the one now encased in a block of clear acrylic, and I sent it to a trusted friend, a retired master jeweler in New York. I gave him a simple set of instructions. I wanted him to build a new, simple, and elegant stainless steel casing for it. I wanted him to attach a new, plain, and unadorned silver watch face. I did not want it to look like the Midnight Scot. I wanted it to look like a simple, modern, and utterly unremarkable pocket watch. My instructions had one final, crucial detail. I asked him to engrave a single small and almost invisible inscription on the back of the new casing, a line of text that only a person looking for it would ever find. My friend, who understood that some questions are better left unasked, agreed without hesitation. The final piece of my plan was to prepare my own contribution to the gala. Rebecca had asked me to give a short speech, to speak about the importance of family and the gift of life she was giving me. I agreed. I spent my long, draining hours in the dialysis clinic not watching television, but writing my speech. It was a beautiful, moving, and utterly sincere speech. It spoke of my love for my wife, for my sister, for my niece. It spoke of the legacy of the Hughes men and their work on the railroad. It spoke of the value of time and of the precious, irreplaceable nature of a single ticking moment. It was a speech that would bring the house down. It was also a speech that was a complete and total misdirection. It was designed to lull them, to warm their hearts, to make them believe in the beautiful, sentimental story Rebecca was selling. The true speech, the true, final, and devastating word would not be spoken. It would be revealed. The week before the gala, the new disguised watch arrived from my friend in New York. It was perfect. It was a ghost, a masterpiece hiding in plain sight. I placed it in the pocket of the suit I would wear to the gala. I now had my own secret inheritance, the true, ticking heart of my family's history, while my niece was preparing to donate a beautiful, hollow, and utterly worthless fake. The stage was set, the audience was invited, and the guest of honor was about to deliver a lesson in the difference between sentimental value and the cold, hard, and unforgiving price of the real thing. Do you believe that a lie, if it is beautiful enough, can be more powerful than the truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The night of the Family Legacy Gala was a spectacle of breathtaking hypocrisy. The city's grandest hotel ballroom was filled with a glittering crowd of Cleveland's elite, all there to witness my niece's carefully orchestrated ascension into sainthood. The room was draped in white silk, and enormous bouquets of white lilies scented the air, a fragrant, funereal tribute to a life that was not yet over. Rebecca was a vision, moving through the room in a stunning couture gown, her face a perfect, radiant mask of selfless nobility. She would stop at each table, accepting the gushing praise of the city's most influential citizens, her hand often resting on the arm of her lawyer, who was never far from her side. She was not just a host, she was a queen holding court. My role in this grand theater was a simple one. I was the living embodiment of her sacrifice, the frail, grateful survivor. I sat at the head table, looking suitably pale and tired from my dialysis, a man whose quiet, humble life was being celebrated through the grand gesture of his heroic niece. I played my part to perfection. I would smile weakly, nod my gratitude, and allow my hand to be held by well-wishers, each one of them telling me how lucky I was to have a niece like Rebecca. The centerpiece of the evening's decorations was a series of large, beautifully framed photographs of my antique watch collection, culminating in a magnificent, larger-than-life portrait of the Midnight Scot. The watch itself, my beautiful, hollow fake, was displayed on a velvet pedestal in a locked glass case at the front of the room, a sacred relic in the new church of St. Rebecca. My decision to attend, to play this part, was a crucial element of the trap. My presence lent the entire evening an air of unimpeachable authenticity. It silenced any potential whispers of coercion. Who could question a bargain when the beneficiary himself was sitting right there, a smiling, willing participant in his own salvation and dispossession? While the guests dined on lobster and filet mignon, a slickly produced video tribute played on large screens around the room. It was a masterpiece of sentimental propaganda. It told the story of our family, of the generations of Hughes men who had worked on the railroad. It showed pictures of me, a younger, stronger man. It showed pictures of my late wife, of my sister, and of Rebecca as a bright-eyed, innocent child. And then it transitioned to my illness, with somber music playing over images of a dialysis machine. The video ended with a slow, dramatic zoom onto Rebecca's beautiful, smiling face, with the words, "A legacy of love, a gift of life," appearing in elegant script. The room erupted in a standing ovation. People were openly weeping. It was a perfect, emotionally manipulative lie, and it was working beautifully. My plan was in motion, a quiet, patient countercurrent running beneath the glittering surface of the evening. Before the event, I had made one simple phone call to a man named Mr. Peterson, the chief curator of the historical museum to which Rebecca was donating the watch. He was an old acquaintance, a man of immense integrity and a world-renowned expert in horology. I did not tell him about the fake. I simply told him that I had some additional private provenance materials for the Midnight Scot that I wished to present to him personally as a surprise during the gala. Intrigued, he had agreed. He was sitting at a table near the front, an unwitting accomplice in the public unmasking that was about to occur. The final piece of my preparation was the small, unremarkable-looking watch that was resting, cool and heavy, in my jacket pocket. It was the true heart of my family's legacy, a masterpiece of craftsmanship disguised as a simple timepiece. It was a quiet, ticking truth in a room full of loud, beautiful lies. After the dessert course was cleared, Rebecca walked to the podium, her face aglow with a practiced, humble radiance. She gave a moving, eloquent speech, her voice catching with emotion as she spoke of the difficult but necessary choice to save the man who had been a father to her. She spoke of the importance of family, of love, of sacrifice. It was a stunning performance, and the audience was completely captivated. Then she turned to me. "And now," she said, her voice a soft, loving purr, "my dear Uncle Walter has a few words he would like to share." The spotlight swung to find me. The room fell silent. This was the moment. I slowly, a bit unsteadily, rose to my feet and walked to the podium. I looked out at the sea of expectant, tear-streaked faces. I looked at my niece, who was beaming at me, her triumph absolute, and I began to deliver the beautiful, heartfelt, and utterly misleading speech I had so carefully prepared. I was about to warm their hearts, to make them believe in the fairy tale, just before I introduced them to the cold, hard, and unforgiving monster of the truth. Before the final act, a question for you. Please hit the like button if you believe that the higher a person builds their pedestal of lies, the harder they will fall. In the comments below, tell me, what is the difference between a lie and a story? The night of the Family Legacy Gala was a spectacle of breathtaking hypocrisy. The city's grandest hotel ballroom was filled with a glittering crowd of Cleveland's elite, all there to witness my niece's carefully orchestrated ascension into sainthood. The room was draped in white silk, and enormous bouquets of white lilies scented the air, a fragrant, funereal tribute to a life that was not yet over. Rebecca was a vision, moving through the room in a stunning couture gown, her face a perfect, radiant mask of selfless nobility. She would stop at each table, accepting the gushing praise of the city's most influential citizens, her hand often resting on the arm of her lawyer, who was never far from her side. She was not just a host, she was a queen holding court. My role in this grand theater was a simple one. I was the living embodiment of her sacrifice, the frail, grateful survivor. I sat at the head table, looking suitably pale and tired from my dialysis, a man whose quiet, humble life was being celebrated through the grand gesture of his heroic niece. I played my part to perfection. I would smile weakly, nod my gratitude, and allow my hand to be held by well-wishers, each one of them telling me how lucky I was to have a niece like Rebecca. The centerpiece of the evening's decorations was a series of large, beautifully framed photographs of my antique watch collection, culminating in a magnificent, larger-than-life portrait of the Midnight Scot. The watch itself, my beautiful, hollow fake, was displayed on a velvet pedestal in a locked glass case at the front of the room, a sacred relic in the new church of St. Rebecca. My decision to attend, to play this part, was a crucial element of the trap. My presence lent the entire evening an air of unimpeachable authenticity. It silenced any potential whispers of coercion. Who could question a bargain when the beneficiary himself was sitting right there, a smiling, willing participant in his own salvation and dispossession? While the guests dined on lobster and filet mignon, a slickly produced video tribute played on large screens around the room. It was a masterpiece of sentimental propaganda. It told the story of our family, of the generations of Hughes men who had worked on the railroad. It showed pictures of me, a younger, stronger man. It showed pictures of my late wife, of my sister, and of Rebecca as a bright-eyed, innocent child. And then it transitioned to my illness, with somber music playing over images of a dialysis machine. The video ended with a slow, dramatic zoom onto Rebecca's beautiful, smiling face, with the words, "A legacy of love, a gift of life," appearing in elegant script. The room erupted in a standing ovation. People were openly weeping. It was a perfect, emotionally manipulative lie, and it was working beautifully. My plan was in motion, a quiet, patient countercurrent running beneath the glittering surface of the evening. Before the event, I had made one simple phone call to a man named Mr. Peterson, the chief curator of the historical museum to which Rebecca was donating the watch. He was an old acquaintance, a man of immense integrity and a world-renowned expert in horology. I did not tell him about the fake. I simply told him that I had some additional private provenance materials for the Midnight Scot that I wished to present to him personally as a surprise during the gala. Intrigued, he had agreed. He was sitting at a table near the front, an unwitting accomplice in the public unmasking that was about to occur. The final piece of my preparation was the small, unremarkable-looking watch that was resting, cool and heavy, in my jacket pocket. It was the true heart of my family's legacy, a masterpiece of craftsmanship disguised as a simple timepiece. It was a quiet, ticking truth in a room full of loud, beautiful lies. After the dessert course was cleared, Rebecca walked to the podium, her face aglow with a practiced, humble radiance. She gave a moving, eloquent speech, her voice catching with emotion as she spoke of the difficult but necessary choice to save the man who had been a father to her. She spoke of the importance of family, of love, of sacrifice. It was a stunning performance, and the audience was completely captivated. Then she turned to me. "And now," she said, her voice a soft, loving purr, "my dear Uncle Walter has a few words he would like to share." The spotlight swung to find me. The room fell silent. This was the moment. I slowly, a bit unsteadily, rose to my feet and walked to the podium. I looked out at the sea of expectant, tear-streaked faces. I looked at my niece, who was beaming at me, her triumph absolute, and I began to deliver the beautiful, heartfelt, and utterly misleading speech I had so carefully prepared. I was about to warm their hearts, to make them believe in the fairy tale, just before I introduced them to the cold, hard, and unforgiving monster of the truth. Before the final act, a question for you. Please hit the like button if you believe that the higher a person builds their pedestal of lies, the harder they will fall. In the comments below, tell me, What is the difference between a lie and a story? I stood at the podium, the warmth of the spotlight a stark contrast to the cold, steady resolve in my heart. I delivered the speech I had written, my voice a carefully modulated instrument of feigned emotion. I spoke of my love for my late wife, for my sister, and for the beautiful, courageous young woman my niece had become. I saw tears welling up in the eyes of the people in the audience. I saw my niece, Rebecca, place a delicate hand on her heart, a perfect gesture of humble appreciation. My words were a soft, warm blanket, lulling them into a state of sentimental comfort, a final act of misdirection before the trap was sprung. The Hughes family legacy, I said, my voice thick with a convincing emotional tremor, is not about money. It is about time. It is about the steady, reliable heartbeat of a good watch, marking the moments of a life well lived. I then turned to the glass case at the side of the stage, and the heart of that legacy has always been this watch, the Midnight Scot, a masterpiece of a bygone era. A treasure that I am so proud to know will be preserved for all time, thanks to the generosity and foresight of my dear Rebecca. Rebecca beamed a radiant, beatific smile. This was her moment, her public anointing. She had saved the man, and now she was nobly saving the legacy. Her story was perfect. The plan I had set in motion was now at its tipping point. I knew I could not simply declare the watch a fake. It would be my word against hers, a messy, unseemly family squabble. No, the truth had to be revealed not by me, but by an unimpeachable, expert third party. Before we officially present this magnificent piece to the museum, I continued, I would like to invite Mr. Peterson, the museum's chief curator, and a man whose expertise in horology is second to none, to join me on stage. A polite ripple of applause went through the room as Mr. Peterson, a distinguished, silver-haired man, made his way to the stage. He looked a bit puzzled, but intrigued. Rebecca's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. This was an unscheduled addition to her carefully managed program. Mr. Peterson, I said, shaking his hand warmly. As the final custodian of my family's collection, Rebecca has done a magnificent job. But as a craftsman, I have one final small gift to add to the donation, a piece of provenance, the true heart of the watch. The room was silent, captivated by this small, unscripted moment of drama. I reached into my jacket pocket. I did not pull out the paperweight, the acrylic block containing the real movement. That was a private truth, a secret satisfaction that was mine alone. Instead, I pulled out the new, unremarkable-looking pocket watch I had commissioned, the one with the plain silver face and the stainless steel case. I held it up for the audience to see. It looked plain, modern, almost cheap compared to the ornate grandeur of the fake Midnight Scot in the display case. A low, confused murmur went through the crowd. Rebecca stared at the watch in my hand, her expression one of pure, baffled condescension. She thought I had lost my mind, that I was presenting a worthless trinket at her black tie gala. This, I said, my voice clear and steady, is my own personal watch, a simple timepiece I had made for my retirement. But it is a special watch. It has a story. I then handed the watch to a still puzzled Mr. Peterson. Sir, I said, as an expert, you know that the true soul of a watch is not its face, but its movement. Would you do me the honor of opening the back of this watch and describing the movement you see inside? Mr. Peterson, his curiosity now fully piqued, took the watch and a small professional jeweler's loupe from his pocket. He turned his back to the audience for a moment, a gesture of professional concentration. He clicked open the back of the case. He placed the loupe to his eye, and then he went completely, utterly still. The silence stretched. The entire ballroom was holding its breath. Mr. Peterson slowly lowered the watch, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated shock and awe. He looked up, not at me, but at the magnificent, fraudulent Midnight Scot in the display case. And then he looked back at the simple, ticking masterpiece in his own hand. He understood. He had just seen the ghost in the machine. The trap was not just set. The door was now swinging slowly, silently, and inexorably shut on my niece's beautiful, glittering, and utterly hollow lie. When a lie is about to be exposed, what is the most powerful moment? The presentation of evidence, the gasp from the crowd, or the silent, dawning horror on the face of the liar? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button if you're ready for the final verdict. The silence in the grand ballroom was absolute. Every eye was on Mr. Peterson, the museum curator, who stood on the stage as if frozen in time, staring at the simple watch in his hand. He slowly, deliberately, closed the back of the case with a soft click and turned to face the audience, his face a mask of grave, academic fury. He walked to the podium and cleared his throat, the small sound echoing like a thunderclap in the silent room. He did not look at me. He looked directly at my niece, Rebecca, who was standing at the side of the stage, her radiant smile now a brittle, painted-on thing. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Peterson began, his voice a low, authoritative rumble that commanded a terrifying respect. "I have just had the profound and deeply disturbing privilege of examining two unique timepieces." He gestured first to the magnificent fake Midnight Scott, still gleaming in its glass case. "This watch, the one being so generously donated tonight, is a beautiful object. Its case is a masterpiece of modern engraving. Its face is a flawless, original 19th century enamel dial." He paused, letting the compliment land before delivering the killing blow. "However," he continued, his voice as cold and as sharp as a diamond cutter, "its internal movement, the very heart of the watch, is a cheap, mass-produced, and utterly worthless Swiss replica." A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. I saw Rebecca's face crumble, the color draining from it as if a plug had been pulled. Her lawyer, standing beside her, looked like he had been turned to stone. Mr. Peterson then held up the simple, unassuming watch I had given him. "This watch, on the other hand," he said, his voice now filled with a genuine reverent awe, "this simple, modern-looking timepiece contains within it one of the most magnificent hand-finished and historically significant movements I have ever had the privilege of seeing. A movement that is, without any shadow of a doubt, the original, priceless, one-of-a-kind heart of the true Midnight Scott." He then looked directly at me, and for the first time, a small, sad smile touched his lips. "It seems, Mr. Hughes, that you have performed a heart transplant." The room erupted not in applause, but in a chaotic, shocked roar of conversation. The truth, in all its ugly, beautiful, and intricate detail, was out. The reporters in the room were scrambling, their faces alight with the thrill of a massive scandal. My niece's carefully constructed evening of philanthropic triumph had just been publicly and spectacularly revealed as a fraud. Her act of heroic, life-saving love was now exposed as a cold, hard, and failed transaction. I did not say another word. I simply took my new, true watch from Mr. Peterson's hand, gave him a small, grateful nod, and walked off the stage. My work was done. The aftermath was a quiet, legal, and financial demolition. The museum, of course, refused the donation. The Kidney Disease Foundation, upon learning that the gala was funded under false pretenses, returned every cent of the money that had been raised. Rebecca was ruined. Her name was a joke in the city's philanthropic circles, her reputation in tatters. The contract she had forced me to sign, the one that gave her my entire estate, was now a source of bitter, ironic torment. She had inherited a house she could not afford the taxes on, savings she had already spent on the disastrous gala, and a collection of watches whose centerpiece was now a publicly declared fake, its value decimated. The final, quiet act of this drama took place not in a ballroom, but in a sterile, white hospital room. A transplant surgery, paid for not by her sacrifice. But by the quiet sale of a few of the lesser watches in my now returned collection was a success. I woke up in the recovery room, a new, healthy kidney quietly doing its work, a gift not from my niece, but from a selfless, anonymous donor from a national registry. My life had been saved not by a corrupt bargain, but by the simple, untransactional grace of a stranger. I never saw Rebecca again. She sold the house at a loss, sold the watch collection for a fraction of its former value, and left the city a young woman who had put a price on love and had in the end been left with nothing of any real value. My revenge was not in her ruin, but in my own quiet, steady, and healthy heartbeat. It was in the simple, profound joy of waking up each morning, a man untethered from a machine, a man with time on his hands. The truest legacy of my family, I realized, was not a collection of beautiful ticking objects. It was the simple, priceless, and inalienable gift of another sunrise. That is how I got my so sweet revenge, and I would do it all over again. Thank you for following my story. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment telling me what you believe is the most valuable thing that cannot be bought or sold.